and you are afraid of the truth. I ask you, the police will stop it. You get the Catholic police and tell them to let you go to the next. I have 2 more minutes. Are you going to allow that?
The first one I didn't recall. The second one is so
Other people have spoken longer than I did, and you did
Next speaker,
Is the police commissioner allowed for this to happen? Is the police commissioner allowed the policeman to do this? Why you going to allow me to fix my chair?
next speaker, please.
Let her talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do not have the next speaker. I will adjourn. I will recess.
Let her talk. Let her talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, I find this convict disruptive. Please clear the room.
Oh man, you did it.
No. Let her talk.
Shall I keep the train going? All right, I guess they're not letting us talk anymore. All right, well, as long as you guys are still listening. My name is Reed Chopper. I am the president of San Francisco for Democracy. I'm so glad that all of you are here, despite this. But you know, something that keeps striking me, no one I way to shoot people. They say we want to see de-escalation techniques used instead. It may be a tougher road, but it is the road that the people want to see. We want to see a culture change, not just a change of weapons. And one concern out of many that I have is whether the guidelines will be properly followed. I currently work as a paralegal for a criminal defense attorney, which means I have to review body camera footage. The guidelines for when to use body cameras is so simple, I can teach it to you in about 2 minutes. Yet over and over, I see them used or not used at the inappropriate times. When a body camera is used incorrectly, someone might lose their freedom. When a taser is used incorrectly, someone might lose their life. I encourage any of you who can hear me who are on the commission, if you can, I urge you, vote no, we do not want it here.
No tasers, no torture. 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 No.
Continue with the talks against tasers. Nancy, the king got off with the people.
I wanted to address the commission. I'm Karen Fleshman. I'm a co-founder of San Franciscans for Police Accountability and a member of Frisco 500 and also a mother, a parent, an attorney. And my concern with the tasers, I serve on the bias work group that's overseeing the implementation of the U.S. Department of Justice recommendations on ending bias within SFPD. I am a bias expert. That's what I do. I travel the country teaching about unconscious bias and teaching methods for overcoming unconscious bias. So this is my passion. This is my area of expertise. At one of the work group meetings, the first official work group meeting, I raised the fact that SFPD in its most recent report had pointed its gun 3,100 times, and that 50% of the people that SFPD pointed their guns at were black. And I asked the work group, which includes SFPD officers, why this was so when black people make up 6% of the population of San Francisco. And they said they're the ones who are committing all the crime. They said that it's supposed to be addressing bias. And at our last official meeting of the bias work group, we decided to keep the work group going because there's still so much more work to do to overcome bias within SFPD. I personally respect Chief Scott tremendously. I think he's a humble man. I think he's a family man. I think he's a reasonable person. But on this issue, I have to disagree with him. And I know that tasers will be used disproportionately on people of color. We heard that in the expert testimony from the study in Connecticut, as well as, we just know use of force is always used disproportionately on people of color. We have the killers of Mario Woods, the killers of Alex Nieto, the killers of Amilcar Perez Lopez, the killers of Jessica Nelson Williams, the killers of Luis Gongora Pat, and 8 other open cases of SFPD murder dating back to September 2014 that are still with DA Gascon. He has not made a decision to charge those officers. That means all of those officers are currently working for SFPD. And even the ones who they've decided not to charge criminally, they're still working for SFPD, as are the racist text message senders. So how are we going to give a new arm to these people that we know are killers and that we know disproportionately use force against people of color? And this is why we must oppose tasers and keep San Francisco taser free. Thank you.
Represent us, we'll be the deciders. This is our council.
So we want to speak on behalf of our own experiences working with the homeless.
Speak loud.
We want to talk about our experiences working with the homeless and how tasers will influence that. Before that, we want to acknowledge that police are public servants and that we do respect their bravery and what they do for us, and we recognize that this is a very complex conversation. However, we would like to review the evidence that is out there for taser use.
So there are some things that we all know based on scientific evidence. We know that studies funded by the Taser Corporation are biased in favor of the safety of tasers. Second, we know that tasers disproportionately affect African Americans, people of color, and the homeless people we serve. And as Dr. Zane mentioned, we know that in his large study, the scientific evidence does not support that tasers save police lives, and in fact, they lead to an increase in deaths in emergency rooms. So there's, in our opinion, no scientific evidence to support the use of tasers, and we urge anyone who is listening to vote no on this measure.
Connecting that to one of our most vulnerable populations, which is the homeless, when we serve our patients, we see that this is a very vulnerable population with very high need for mental health, for a lot of chronic illness management. There's a lot of stigma that's involved with the homeless population, and there's a lot of barriers to attaining housing and to human dignity. So we believe that tasers are the last thing that they need. So we urge a no vote.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Hi. My name's Stephanie M. I'm here because I have a friend who was killed by a taser.
Oh, sorry.
By police. It's been 4 years and we still don't have justice for my friend. His name is Israel Hernandez. He was a teenager. A targeted group, Latino, low-income community. I hope you guys can take my friend's death as an example of how it's not a solution. The family is still fighting for his justice. If you want to Google his name.
Say it again.
Israel Hernandez.
Say his name.
Israel Hernandez.
Say his name.
Israel Hernandez.
Say his name.
Israel Hernandez. Israel Hernandez.
Israel Hernandez.
Is there anything else you want to say?
I think his death can speak volumes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Trevor Martin. I'm the treasurer of San Francisco Bernie Credits, as well as San Francisco for Democracy. And I came here just to stress this contradiction, this rigid dichotomy between, the reforms that we want to see, time and distance, crisis intervention, de-escalation, and implicit bias training, and the use of tasers. And there is a stark dichotomy between police accountability and the use of tasers. There is no accountability. All right, when you look at the restrictions on use, it's all subjective. If the suspect appears elderly, if he appears to be young, if she appears to be pregnant, if they appear to be, suffering from a mental health crisis or some other medical condition, you cannot expect, these men are not doctors. That's right. You cannot expect them to diagnose someone in that split second before pulling the trigger. All right, but that's exactly what they expect them to do. As the guy was there, the guy from the tasers who recommends overlooking the warnings on boxes. we are trusting them to make that decision. And the fact is we can't. And we can't expect them to make that decision because they're not doctors. And there is no accountability. There was an instance, a California police officer pulled over a young African American man for suspicious behavior. All right, turns out this young man was autistic, 14 years old, autistic boy, and the suspicious behavior, besides being black, was that he was doing self-stimulating hand gestures, which to anyone who is familiar with autism knows that this is a symptom. All right, but this officer had no idea. We can't expect most of them to have any ideas like that. He tackled and assaulted and beat this boy down and held him to the ground for nearly 10 minutes until backup came. Right, while this boy was screaming in pain and agony. All right, God knows what happened if he had a taser. I'm surprised he didn't use his gun. All right, but what we want, the reforms we want to see, de-escalation, crisis intervention training, implicit bias. This goes in strict contradiction to the use of tasers, and we just can't have it.